Welcome back to AdMagneto Media. Our channel is all about diving into the coolest stuff in marketing and business, and today we're tackling a book that's basically legendary in the startup world, The Lean Startup by Ries.
Oh, yeah, this book is huge.
It's gotten praise from the CEO of Idea, big names recommended to anyone who's even thinking about starting a business. But here's the thing.
It's not just for tech companies, right?
Exactly. The Lean Startup has something for anyone creating something new, especially folks in marketing.
That's so true. What I find fascinating about the lean startup is that it kind of throws out the old school way of doing business.
Okay, so what do you mean by that?
Instead of spending years trying to make a perfect product, Ries says that startups should be okay with not knowing everything and focus on learning as they go.
So less time in meetings, more time actually trying things out.
Exactly. It's all about this thing called the build, measure, learn loop.
Build, measure, learn.
Yeah, you build something a minimum viable product or MVP, then you see how customers react to it. And then here's the key. You learn from those reactions. And then you decide, do we keep going or do we change direction?
Makes sense. I feel like that's so relevant to running a marketing campaign too. Like you put an ad out there, you see who clicks, who converts, and then you use that data to refine who you're targeting or what your message is.
Exactly. It's all about using data, seeing how customers actually behave, not just guessing.
Right. It's about testing the waters instead of jumping straight into the deep end.
A perfect analogy. One of the best examples of this in action is the story of Intuit, the company that makes TurboTax. They were having a problem that I think a lot of companies can relate to.
What was that?
Their new products weren't making as much money as they expected.
Okay, I've been there.
The interesting thing is, instead of doing what they always did, they took this lean startup idea and they went all in.
Wait, so a huge company like Intuit actually had to change things up and think like a tiny startup? That's crazy.
It is. They started doing hundreds of experiments, using this build, measure, learn thing to test their ideas quickly and see what customers really thought. Imagine doing that with your marketing, testing out different landing pages, trying new ad copy, and constantly getting better based on the data you get back.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it shows you how important it is to try things out and learn all the time, no matter how big or small your company is.
Totally. It proves you don't have to be a brand new company to use these lean startup ideas. And speaking of trying things out, the book talks about this minimum viable product or MVP. It's not about launching something that's unfinished, right?
Right. The MVP isn't about doing things the cheap way. It's about figuring out your biggest risks and testing them without spending a ton of time or money. Like Groupon, remember them.
Of course.
They started with just a blog and some PDFs to test out their main idea before they built a fancy website.
Oh, wow. So it's all about getting to that moment where you're like, this works.
Yes.
But doing it quickly and without wasting resources on something that might fail.
Right. Exactly. And an MVP doesn't even have to be a physical product. Sometimes you can do a concierge MVP.
A what?
That's where you do the service yourself to see what customers really need. Like if you were starting a marketing consulting business, you might give some free, personalized advice to a few people first, just to see if there's actual demand.
Oh, I see. That's super smart. So you're not building something in a vacuum. You're getting real feedback from people right away.
And that's the whole point. Remember, building an MVP is about learning, not perfection. Think about those people who are always excited to try new stuff, even if it's not totally finished yet.
The early adopters.
Exactly. They often give the best feedback because they really care about the problem you're trying to solve.
So you're saying that getting feedback early on, even if it's not all positive, is actually super valuable because it helps you make changes and avoid bigger problems later on.
You got it. And that leads us to another big idea from the lean startup, which is pivoting. It's knowing when to change what you're doing based on the info you're getting.
Yeah, so knowing when to pivot. That's tricky.
Yeah, when do we know? And how do we do it right?
Well, there's this company in the book, Grokit. They do online test prep. They were adding all these features, and their user numbers were growing.
Sounds good so far.
But something wasn't right. They got caught up in what are called vanity metrics.
Vanity metrics? What are those?
Numbers that look great on paper,
Yeah.
but they don't actually mean you're making more money.
Oh, yeah, I think we've all been there. Like getting super excited about likes on a Facebook post, but then crickets, no sales.
Exactly. So Grokit, they used split testing, basically A/B testing, like we use in marketing to see what was really working. They made small changes, measured the impact, and guess what?
What?
They found out their marketing was way more important than new features.
Wow, so they were focused on the wrong thing. Kind of, yeah. They pivoted to make their messaging and positioning better, and that's what got them more customers.
So they were all about the product, but it turned out the marketing needed a makeover. That's a good reminder that we have to check our assumptions about everything, not just what we're selling.
Totally. And that's where these lean startup ideas are so helpful for marketers. It's not just about the product, it's about finding what really makes your business grow and making sure it keeps working.
So it's not a one-time thing. It's about constantly trying things and tweaking them, kind of like fine-tuning an engine.
Yeah, exactly. And speaking of engines, the book talks about different engines of growth, like how do you get your business to grow sustainably over time?
Hmm. Interesting. What kind of engines are we talking about?
Well, Ries talks about three main ones: the sticky engine, the viral engine, and the paid engine.
Okay, let's break those down. Starting with sticky, that sounds like good.
Right. The sticky engine is all about making something that people love and want to keep using. Think Netflix or Spotify, where people pay every month and keep coming back for more.
So building loyalty, making your product so good that people can't live without it.
All right.
Got it. What about viral?
Viral is all about word of mouth, getting people to tell their friends, like Facebook or Dropbox, where every new user can bring in even more users.
Right, the classic tell a friend. And in the age of social media, that can be incredibly powerful. What about the last one, paid? I feel like I know where this is going.
Yeah, the paid engine is basically about using ads and other paid stuff to get customers. Like, think Google or Amazon. They spend tons of money on advertising to reach the right people.
Makes sense. So which engine is the best?
Well, that's the thing. There's no one best engine. It depends on what you're selling and who you're trying to reach. The key is to figure out which one fits your business best and then use the lean startup principles to make it work even better.
Ah, so it's about picking the right tool for the job, then making sure you're using it correctly. That's a really helpful way to think about it. And, even with a perfect engine, there are times when you need to change things up. We talked about pivoting earlier, and I think it would be really helpful to see how companies actually do it.
Totally. I remember Groupon. They didn't start out as the daily deals site we know today.
Really, what were they doing?
They started as a platform for group bargaining, basically using people power to get discounts.
Interesting. So how did they end up doing daily deals?
Well, they noticed that people were really into the idea of getting deals on local businesses, so they shifted gears.
So they were smart enough to see that their original idea wasn't quite working and had the, flexibility to try something new.
Exactly. And Instagram is another great example. Did you know they actually started as something completely different?
No way. I had no idea.
They were a location-based app called Bourbon, like a check-in app. But then they saw that people were mostly using it to share photos, and boom, they went all in on photos.
So pivoting isn't always about giving up on your dream. Sometimes it's about finding a better way to get there. It's about listening to your customers and giving them what they want.
You're getting it. And it's not always easy. Pivoting can be tough, especially when you've put your heart and soul into something.
I bet it can be.
Yeah.
It's hard to admit when something isn't working.
But that's what the lean startup is all about. It's about seeing that changing direction isn't a failure. It's just part of learning. It's about being flexible and finding what works.
Like I said, the only constant is change.
Right.
Right. And in the world of business and marketing, being able to adapt is everything.
You're right. And the book talks about building a whole company culture around this idea of being adaptable.
A culture of, always experimenting and learning.
Yeah. It's about encouraging people to try new things, even if they don't work out perfectly. And one of the tools they talk about for getting to the root of a problem is the 5 whys analysis.
Oh, I've heard of that.
Yeah.
You keep asking why until you figure out the real reason something's happening, right?
Exactly. So instead of just fixing the symptom, you find the underlying cause. It's like peeling back the layers of an onion.
That makes so much sense. I could see how helpful that would be for marketers. If a campaign isn't doing well, you got to figure out why.
You nailed it. The 5 whys can help you zero in on the real issue. And once you fix that, the problem's less likely to come back. Now, building this kind of adaptable culture also often means setting up a sandbox for innovation.
A sandbox, for kids to play in.
Kind of, but in this case, it's for your team. It's a safe space where they can try things without being afraid to fail. A place to test ideas and learn from mistakes, without feeling like everything has to be perfect right away.
Oh, I get it. So it's like giving them the freedom to be creative without worrying about messing things up.
Exactly. The sandbox is all about protecting those new ideas from the, bureaucracy and politics that can happen in bigger companies.
That makes sense. But how do we know if those experiments are actually working? How do we make sure it's not just a place where good ideas go to die?
That's where the lean startup stuff comes back in. By using those principles, you can make experimentation more structured. You set goals, you track your progress, you learn from what happens.
So it's not just about letting people run wild. It's about having a system for turning those crazy ideas into something real.
You got it. And the best part is, the sandbox lets you test your riskiest ideas without putting the whole company in danger. If it fails, no big deal. But if it succeeds, you can make it bigger and bring it into the whole company.
It's like a low risk, high reward kind of thing.
Exactly. And it's all about building a culture where learning and trying new things is just part of how you do business.
That's so cool. And it brings us right back to what the lean startup is all about, right? It's about questioning what you think, constantly trying to improve and not being afraid to shake things up.
Absolutely. It's about using data to make smart decisions and giving people the power to be creative and solve problems.
And it's about building companies that can handle change, bounce back from setbacks, and keep getting better. Now, we've talked a lot about the lean startup, but let's make sure it's clear for our audience at AdMagneto Media. We've got marketers, business people, all kinds of folks tuning in. What's the takeaway for them? How can they use this stuff in their real work?
That's a great question. The lean startup is really a way of thinking about risk and innovation that anyone can use in almost any situation.
So it's not just for people starting new businesses, it's for anyone trying to create something new, period.
Right. Whether you're launching a product, running a marketing campaign, or even just trying to improve how you do something at work, the lean startup can help you make better choices, waste less time and energy, and get better results.
It's like working smarter, not harder,
Right.
and creating a culture where everyone's learning and growing.
Exactly. Now, the lean startup might seem like a new thing, but it actually comes from the ideas of lean manufacturing, which Toyota was doing way back in the 1900s.
So the idea of cutting out waste and always getting better isn't really new. It's just been adapted for startups and businesses today.
You got it. One of the main things lean manufacturing teaches is that waste is like the enemy of getting things done. And waste can be all sorts of things.
Like doing extra steps that aren't necessary or even creating something that no one wants.
Exactly. And the lean startup takes that idea and applies it to building a business. It says that the biggest waste is building something that nobody wants.
Ouch. Yeah, that makes sense. So how do you avoid that?
By testing your ideas early and often, using things like customer development and that minimum viable product we talked about.
So it's about making sure you're building the right thing before you invest a ton of time and money, right? It's totally different from how people used to do it, where they'd spend years planning and building before anyone even saw the product.
Right. That can be a huge mistake if you've made some bad assumptions along the way. The lean startup is all about getting out there and talking to your customers as soon as possible.
Because the sooner you get feedback, the sooner you can start making things better.
Exactly. The more you learn and adapt, the better your product or service will become. And the more likely you are to build something that people actually want. Now, the lean startup isn't just about cutting out waste, it's about building a system for always improving.
So like a feedback loop where you're constantly learning from your customers and making things better based on what they tell you.
Yeah, and it's about giving your team the power to experiment and take risks, knowing that sometimes you'll fail, and that's okay.
It's like seeing failure as a learning opportunity, not something to be afraid of.
You got it. That's one of the most powerful things about the lean startup. It's all about learning and getting better all the time. And it's not just about learning from your own mistakes, it's about learning from what other people have done too.
That's why it's so cool that there's a whole community around the lean startup.
Totally. It's a place where people can share their stories, the things they've learned, and the things that have worked for them.
It's like a giant support group for innovators.
Hmm.
Now, even though the lean startup has gotten really popular, I think some people still don't really understand what it is.
Oh, for sure. Like, one big misunderstanding is that it's only for tech startups, but that's just not true. These ideas can work for any business, any industry.
It's a way of thinking about innovation that anyone can use no matter what they're doing.
Exactly. Whether you're making a product, starting a business, or just trying to do things better at work, the lean startup can help you get there.
So it's a flexible set of tools, not just a one-size-fits-all solution.
You got it. Another myth is that it's all about being cheap and cutting corners, but that's not it at all. The lean startup is about being smart with your resources and focusing on the things that really matter.
So it's not about being cheap, it's about being effective.
Exactly. It's about using data to make decisions, not just going with your gut. And another thing people get wrong is thinking it's a quick fix, like you just read the book and everything magically
Oh
changes.
yeah, the just add water approach to business.
Huh. Yeah. But it's not like that. The lean startup is a journey, not a destination.
It's a whole new way of thinking and working and learning.
Exactly. It takes time and effort to make it work, but the results are worth it.
So we've talked about the good stuff, but what about the challenges? What are some of the roadblocks people hit when they try to use the lean startup?
Well, one of the biggest hurdles is just getting people to change how they do things. A lot of companies are stuck in their old ways and don't want to try something new.
Especially if they've been successful doing things a certain way for a long time.
Totally. They might see the lean startup as a threat or think it means they're doing something wrong.
So it's about changing mindsets, getting people to see that embracing change is the only way to survive in today's world.
You got it. And it's about making people feel safe to try new things and make mistakes without getting punished. Because if people are afraid to fail, they won't be creative.
That makes sense. You have to create a culture where it's okay to take risks and learn from your mistakes.
Right. Another challenge is that we need more data to prove that the lean startup actually works. There are lots of stories about it, but we need more research to show the real impact.
So we need to be able to back up these ideas with hard numbers, not just anecdotes.
Exactly. And the lean startup community is working on that, doing more studies to show how effective these principles can be.
That's good to hear. And finally, I think one of the biggest challenges is just keeping up with how fast things are changing in the world today. It's tough to stay on top of all the new technology, new trends, and new business models.
You're telling me the world of business is constantly evolving, and the companies that can adapt the fastest are the ones that will win.
So the lean startup isn't just a set of rules you follow once and you're done. It's a way of thinking that has to keep changing with the times.
You got it. It requires a commitment to always be learning and improving.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into the lean startup, what's the one big takeaway you want to leave our listeners with?
The most important thing is to embrace this idea of always learning and experimenting. Don't be afraid to question what you think you know, test your ideas, and be open to changing course based on what you learn.
So it's about being curious, open-minded, and okay with making mistakes.
You got it. And remember, innovation is a journey, not a destination.
So we all need to keep learning, keep trying new things, and keep building a better future together.
I love that. And hey, thanks for having me on the show.
It's been awesome having you. And for our listeners, if you're ready to really dive in and put these lean startup ideas to work, come hang out with us over at AdMagneto Media on YouTube.
Yeah, we've got tons of resources for marketers and business folks like you, case studies, tutorials, interviews with people who are using the lean startup to build incredible things.
We're all about helping you guys succeed. And don't forget to subscribe to the Deep Dive for even more deep dives on all the stuff that matters to you.
We cover everything from the latest marketing trends to the future of work. It's all there.
So as we wrap up our look at the lean startup, I'm curious, are companies really starting to use these ideas in the real world?
Oh, yeah, definitely. I'm seeing more and more companies, big and small, adopting the lean startup way of doing things.
That's awesome.
And it's not just tech companies anymore, it's spreading everywhere. Healthcare, education, government, even nonprofits are getting on board.
It's becoming a global movement, changing how we think about innovation and starting new businesses.
And one of the things I love most about it is that it's making innovation accessible to everyone. It's giving people the tools and the confidence to experiment and create no matter what their background is or what their job title is.
It's about empowering people to solve problems and make a difference. I love that.
Me too. Now, even though the main ideas of the lean startup are timeless, the tools and methods are always changing. What are some of the trends you're seeing right now?
One big one is lean analytics.
Oh, yeah, that's huge.
It's all about using data to make smarter decisions about your product or service, focusing on the metrics that really matter, like how much it costs to get a customer, how much they spend over their lifetime, and how engaged they are.
It's about figuring out what actually drives growth and using data to guide how you build your product and how you market it.
Exactly. Another trend is growth hacking. Have you heard of that?
Of course. It's everywhere these days.
It's about finding those clever, out-of-the-box marketing strategies that can help you grow your business super fast, even if you don't have a lot of resources.
Yeah, it's about thinking differently about how to get customers, spread the word about your product, and make the biggest impact with what you've got.
Totally. We're also seeing more and more people using AI and machine learning to make the lean startup process even better.
Oh, for sure. AI and machine learning are being used to automate tasks, analyze data, and give entrepreneurs those aha moments that help them make smarter choices.
It's like having a superpowered assistant for your business. And as these technologies keep getting better, I think we'll see even more amazing ways to use them in the lean startup world.
Absolutely. It's a super exciting time to be part of this movement. There's so much potential for growth, for new ideas, and for making a positive impact on the world.
I agree. Now, it wouldn't be a true deep dive if we didn't talk about some of the challenges facing the lean startup going forward. What are some of the hurdles we need to overcome?
Well, I think one of the biggest ones is just getting people to be open to change. There are still a lot of companies that are stuck in their old ways of doing things.
It's hard to break out of that comfort zone, especially for big companies that have been successful doing things a certain way for a long time.
Exactly. It takes a real shift in mindset, a willingness to try new things, and a commitment to always improving.
And a little bit of courage too, right?
Oh, absolutely. And another challenge is that we still need more research to prove that the lean startup really works. We have lots of success stories, but we need more solid data to show the real impact.
We need to be able to convince the skeptics with hard numbers, not just good vibes.
Exactly. And lastly, I think we need to do a better job of adapting the lean startup principles to different industries and situations. What works for a tech company in Silicon Valley might not work for a manufacturing company in the Midwest.
It's about finding the right balance between those core principles and the unique needs of each business.
That's it. So as we look ahead, it's important to remember that the lean startup isn't some magic formula that works for everyone. It's a way of thinking that needs to be adapted and customized to each situation.
And it's a journey, not a destination.
Right. We're all constantly learning and growing, and that's what makes it so exciting.
The lean startup is a powerful tool for change, and I really believe it has the potential to make the world a better place. So, as we wrap up, what's the one thing you want our listeners to take away from all of this?
I'd say the most important thing is to embrace the idea of always learning and experimenting. Don't be afraid to question your assumptions, to test your ideas, and to change direction based on what you learn.
It's about being curious, being open to new possibilities, and being willing to learn from our mistakes.
You got it. Innovation is a journey, not a destination.
So let's all keep learning, keep experimenting, and keep building a better future together.
I love that.
Thanks again for joining us. It's been an awesome deep dive into the lean startup. And to our listeners, thank you for tuning in. We hope you found this valuable and insightful. Until next time, keep learning, keep innovating, and keep pushing the boundaries.